All right, the Reds, it is the second look. Liverpool beat Cardiff City 4-1 at Anfield, went to the top of the league. By the time this goes out, they might not be, who knows, but we shall see. Dan Morgan and Paul Cope with me, Gareth Roberts, to talk about the game. What it did mean is that Liverpool have got 26 points from 10 matches, which matches their previous best start to a Premier League season in 08-09, when Liverpool ended up winning 86 points, but unfortunately didn't win the league. You didn't need reminding of that, but sorry, that's where we are. Dan, start with you. The team, first off, let's do a little bit on the team in that you made a few changes. Lovren in there, Moreno in there, Lallana in there, which caused a little bit of controversy in terms of his performance. What did you make of when you first saw the team? Any concerns for you there, or did you think this is the right type of game for Liverpool to be doing this?
No, I think I've kind of looked at this block of games, and we all have to an extent and said that this is the time when you can rotate.
Yeah.
You can maybe even look at something different in terms of shape and system. So I was completely fine with it. I think in any game, no matter who you're coming up against, there's a core of players you want in there, and I think there's a core of players the manager wants in there. You know, Van Dijk. I would think he'd be remiss to change the keeper in a league game. Wijnaldum's been arguably the player of the season so far, and he's got the three of them up there. You know that if there was any kind of shock to me, it was maybe that all three of them started. I thought maybe Sturridge would be able to come in and flat track a little bit in a game like this, because if there is a game from the start, it may be one that he would like. But no, I was happy with it. I mean, I think if you use the example of someone like Moreno, I think it's impossible for him in many ways, because people will just argue all the time that he's shit and he's no good. Well, yeah, that might be the case that you don't rate him as a footballer, but any footballer without rhythm, without games, is not going to be able to perform to any kind of standard that they can do. And I think when you seen last season where he got a run of games from the start of the season, he was competent for a number of months. You know, he goes out against Spartak Moscow, only for Robinson coming and doing what he's doing. You know, he's hard lines. So someone like him as an example is an example where you can say, okay, go and get minutes there. And as well, the manager's probably had to promise him minutes at some point. There's a game for it. So the team was fine for me. You know, it's one of those games where I didn't even bother looking at Cardiff's team, because what's the point?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, we said in the preview show, everyone expected the Liverpool win and a comfortable one, and the odds reflected that. Warnock's comments as well before the game and everything else all reflected the fact that it was going to be a very difficult afternoon for them. And so it proved in the first half. Now, there's obviously been some debate about this, not least on the Anfield app, with the post-match show and the post-match pint being very different shows, it's fair to say, as everyone is pointing out. But Liverpool in that first half, 85% of the ball, Mr. Cope, 12 shots to Cardiff's none, only 2 of those on target, 5 off target, 5 blocked. And passes as well. The pass, I remember I looked this up while I was queuing up for a pie, and I still find it quite incredulous, really, that Cardiff only managed 36 passes that found, you know, a fellow Cardiff player in the first half, as opposed to Liverpool's 413. 91% of Liverpool's passes were accurate, 46% of Cardiff's were accurate. I mean, what did you make of the first half? Because the second half is a slightly different picture. But first half, what did you make of it?
I think it's one of these situations where the stats make it look better than it was. Because we used to talk about this with Sean on the review all the time, the difference between assessing a match through stats and assessing it through your own eyes. And Neil I was sitting next to Neil. We don't often sit next to each other. And he mentioned this on the post-match show on the podcast. But the first thing I noticed when we scored was 3 of their lads just stayed lying down on the floor, and it very much struck me as this is going to be a long, long afternoon. Like, their whole plan, I was going to call it a business plan then, their whole plan was don't concede early. And at 9 minutes you've conceded. They already looked under loads of pressure. They've got no plan B, realistically. They know if they open up, then we're going to expose them. And I just thought, forgetting the pass statistics, which, they just didn't really partake in the first half at all. There were times when, there was one moment where Gini Wijnaldum had the ball at his feet on the halfway line for about 30 seconds, and no one went anywhere near him. He turned and he twisted and he turned and he looked for a pass and he came back. and no one pressed them. And for me, they're the moments in games when, especially when you haven't got a game in the week afterwards, especially when you've got the likes of Lallana and Moreno who haven't played, you've got to impose yourself more on the game, and it's got to be more than just passing the ball around. It's got to be making sort of incisive runs, incisive passes that put them under pressure, because I often talk about do the thing that the opposition doesn't want you to do. And I think we did the opposite of that. I think we did lots of stuff that if you'd have said to Cardiff as soon as we scored, what would you like Liverpool to do now? They'd have said, can they just pass it around for a bit and we can just sit back and just get to half-time 1-0. I think even then, if you'd have said to them, you can lose this game 4-1, they'd have said, brilliant, we get to score a goal. I would never imagine that would happen. So I just think we didn't do enough. And I mean, from my vantage point in the ground, you can see Klopp's mannerisms, and he didn't look overly happy with it. So don't get me wrong, we won 4-1 at home by the end of it all, and that's great, and we got some goals. I just think in those situations, we've got to do more, and the lads who come in do need to do a bit more.
I mean, I've watched the game back, and I made made some notes when I watched it back, because it is difficult at times. I mean, for instance, I'm at the back of the Kop, and with the best will in the world, when there's something going on down at the Annie Road, particularly if it's a scramble, you don't know what's going on. And for instance, Cardiff's goal, I didn't know what had happened on Cardiff's goal other than I've seen it go through the keeper's legs, and I thought, what happened there? I've seen it back now, and I understand there was a deflection and everything else. So I think it is interesting when you watch it back. And it's interesting that you're saying that you don't think Liverpool did that much in the first half after scoring, because there's actually quite a few things, I think. Van Dijk hits the post with his header, 13 minutes, only 3 minutes or so after the goal, probably should score. Not seconds after that, there's a poor ball from Fabinho to Mo. He would have been through if he'd managed that ball a little bit better. There's the one where the keeper's out really quickly to block Mo. There's a penalty shout as well. I don't think it probably was a penalty. He has both arms on him at one point, but I think Mo sort of decides a little bit late to go down, and it's gone. You know what I mean? If he was going to try and sick the ref, he needed to be a little bit quicker, and he didn't do that. Other ones in the first half, there's Trent Alexander's lovely take, but then a poor shot. There's a Moreno shot block, and then there's a Lallana header off the line at the end. So there's plenty there to say you could sort of quite easily be 3 up, 4 up. It didn't happen, of course, and maybe there's some frustration around that, but you've got a different take on the first half anyway, haven't you?
I'll have a healthy disagreement with Cope on this.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Look, I think sometimes we're just far too guilty at looking at things from our own perspective and point of view. And I think what you don't ever account for is what the opposition do and what they don't do, more importantly. Now, Cardiff there are a back seven out of possession. Yep. They're a back seven. They've got no interest in the game. The time wasting at 1-0 and 2-0 and 3-1 down. Do you know what I mean? And there's no point in that game where they say, we're going to take a chance in any way, shape or form that breaks this shape that we've got. And what I think you've got to look at is the last game Warnock sees is Red Star on Wednesday night, where Liverpool get to the byline continuously. So his analysis of that is at no point did he get to the byline. Basically, they play on the edge of their own box. Yeah. So for that, to ask for more, I think is a little bit. I think it's a little bit heavy to ask for more from them constantly in that sense, because you can only do what's in front of you. And if you've got a line of shirts basically camped out in their own box saying to Wijnaldum, go ahead, you have the ball. You can have it as deep as our middle third, but the minute you get to the 18-yard box, that's when we close up. And like you say, there's opportunities there for it to be more decisive maybe in the first half. But I think at no point are we in danger. And I think that the only thing that makes it a little bit anxious is Cardiff's goal. And Cardiff's goal for me is sheer law of averages. Yeah. We're going to have to concede a goal eventually in the league. And it happens via deflections. And it makes the whole thing look a little bit scruffy. But around me, I mean, there was a lot of anxiety that I couldn't really put my finger on, and it was just something I didn't really necessarily agree with, because I thought, at no point were Liverpool in danger, but also I thought, not only were the substitutions good, the fact that he didn't make the third sub was good, because your two best players left on the pitch, who he could have played Football Manager with at 2-0 and just got off. He leaves them on and they have a major hand in the last two goals. So look down the archives at any Man United win. in the 90s when they've won 4-1, they've probably scored 2 goals in the last 5 minutes. No one's going to remember how that game was won. It's Liverpool 4, Cardiff 1 for me. And I get the arguments and the fear about we're not last season's Liverpool. Well, I say this all the time. If you want last season's Liverpool, you might have to cough for that being a draw on Saturday, because we got 9 points from the bottom relegated sides last season. They're going to get relegated. Yeah. That could have been a draw easily from the start of 14-15 to, I would argue, the start of this calendar year. It's progression for me, whatever way you look at it, I think.
You want to come back on that?
Yeah, I don't disagree with most of that, and I agree, and I don't actually understand why there was so much anxiety in the ground. And I might have said this last time, that it's going to be interesting for me when this crowd gets to understand and accept that we're good defensively. Like, I wasn't concerned about us losing points in the game. What I was concerned about is, I think there are certain opportunities when you can put a team to the sword, and I might contradict myself a bit from last week actually, where I was saying we don't need to worry about the goal difference too much. But I think when you've got an opportunity where you can build on that goal difference, you might as well take it. And you don't often get these opportunities where you haven't got a big game in the week. You're playing against a team. I agree with what Dan's saying about their shape and all the rest of it, and they've only come for a certain way. But they were awful. And whenever we put them under any type of pressure, you could see they had no... I mean, going into the game, when their own manager's saying we've got no chance of winning this, that seeps into the subconscious, and that's why they're lying on the floor after 9 minutes thinking, oh God, this is going to be a long day. And I accept all those points as well, that you've got all these opportunities to score a goal. I think when you look back at the way in which those opportunities came about, my big thing is we just didn't do enough of that. If we'd have just done a bit more of that, I think we'd have been 2-3 up at half time. And then who knows where it goes second half. Ultimately though, it's worth saying, because I think there's a lot of people who are really annoyed by it and angered by it. And they're sort of forgetting we did win 4-1 at the end of the day. Because even when it was 2-1, I was still sitting there saying, well, we could win this, we could score 6. Like, they're going to tire now. As soon as we scored the third, it was clear. In fact, even then, we could have scored 5 or 6, because there was a couple where Salah tried a lob with his right foot, then one from the halfway line with his left, where Mane was free. So it still could have been 5, 6, 7. And that's something else. I mean, even for me, I think we have to get into the habit of understanding that when City win 5-6-0, they're not scoring 3-4 goals in the first half. They're often getting to half time 1 or 2-0, and then it's late pushes where the other side's tired. You're bringing on subs. I just think it'll be interesting to see how it develops, and can we do more if we get an opportunity like that in the future.
Well, we shall see. There are different opinions on this one. There certainly were on the post-match stuff, as I say. Neil has felt a bit of heat this weekend, so how's he feeling now, having had a few hours to think about it, and with the tactics board in front of him? You'll find out right now.
After the match, Jurgen Klopp said something really interesting about why he'd selected Firmino. He'd said he wanted Liverpool to be more direct. That's really fascinating as far as I'm concerned, because one of the things that was frustrating during that first half, and certainly the second half of the first half, was how much Liverpool played in front of Cardiff. You can be direct in a couple of different ways. The first way you can be direct is just to play it long up from the back. That's a real option for you. You could just do that, and we actually saw Liverpool do that a little bit more in the first half, and they did it a fair bit against Red Star Belgrade as well. The other way to be direct is to carry the ball in a direct manner, or to pass forward from the middle of the park, straight through the middle of the pitch. Liverpool did none of those three things when they were poor in that first half. Normally they wouldn't do this sort of thing, but this is where the average positions of influence was for both sides in that first 45 minutes. I've got this set up pretty close to exactly where they were on that map. And just to point a couple of little things out there as part of that. Liverpool play 4, there's the back 4, there's the 2, there's the 3, and there's the 1. Fabinho's the one I've been slightly cute with, in that he's actually about here on average position, which is a separate problem, but he should be about here, I suspect, in an ideal world. But as I say, here's the 3. And look how narrow the 3 are. So you're playing 4-2-3-1, and the 3 are all in this area here in their average position. This is Salah up here, there's Firmino, that's Lallana, and that's Mane. What you can take from this, though, is look where the Cardiff players are. So we can see Ekul Manga here is just sat right on top of where Mane actually is. Here is Junior Hoylett and here's Camarasa. That's stopping Mane getting onto the ball and being able to do much damage in this area. If Mane comes out here, he gives them a problem. Someone's got to come all the way out here, and that creates space, which Firmino or someone else could use. But instead, Mane played it like an inside left position. Alternatively, Lallana could go out there and make the pitch huge, drag Bennett out and go from there, and maybe there'd be more room. But we know what Lallana wants to be. He wants to be in there. Mane's used to being in there. The other thing that Liverpool could have done is with the fullbacks could have got right the way up the pitch and done some more. Cardiff are a little cute with Murphy. He's helping to pin Alexander-Arnold back there by playing on the blind side of him and giving him a little bit of a problem. Moreno, though, did not bomb forward very much at all through the game. But even that there would have dragged Hoylett out and created a tiny little bit of space here. Liverpool did none of these things, and that's one of the reasons why the game was at times really frustrating to watch. They didn't really find a way to make the pitch huge, to drag space, either using the wide players or using the fullbacks, or both, and then have men join from midfield. They didn't go direct and risk losing possession in order to turn Cardiff around and make them have to play a little bit in the middle of the park. Even if they just went long, it meant there was no risks in being more direct, and that's what the manager said he wanted afterwards. They didn't run in that period at Cardiff. You saw the difference that Shaqiri made, and so the first half became just a little bit static, just a little bit all played in front of Cardiff, with Liverpool not being prepared to force the issue, and too many of their players just ended up standing in positions which made it harder and harder for them to get on the ball.
Okay, thanks to Neil there. So yeah, looking more at the second half now, and as I said earlier, there's a little bit of a change. Cardiff come into it a little bit more. It's when they have, I think, 1 or 2 shots as opposed to none in the first half. They obviously score a goal. But I mean, just to emphasise again how one-sided that first half was, the offside goal, if you like, that you see on 51 minutes. They're the first touches Cardiff have in Liverpool's box in the game, in the 51st minute. And then you obviously, that was followed by, bizarrely, we don't often talk about the fans too much on this, it's a very analytical show and all that sort of stuff, but I want to mention the fact that Cardiff, I like Cardiff as a city. I think it's a great place. It was great for those finals. And we've got some good stuff in the can for when we play Cardiff away with Cardiff fans. But the lads who were at Anfield on Saturday, they need to have a big word with themselves, because they were singing footballs coming home to take the piss out of the fact that England didn't win the World Cup. You're in the wrong place for that, lads.
Yeah, they've not got our business card at all, have they?
No, not at all.
Not one bit.
He just didn't get that one. And I think they had the full repertoire of knobhead songs out there, didn't they, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I was in the cop with you, but I mean, I definitely hear football's coming home.
Yeah,
I was thinking, have they put a spin on that themselves? Because surely they are not trying to like bait Liverpool fans with that.
England.
Yeah, I mean, zero reactions there.
I know.
So yeah.
I think they must. It struck me that they're clearly like doing the tour of the grounds with that one.
Yeah,
and they just haven't taken into account that probably 30 or 40% of the grounds they'll be going to don't care. Like they might as well just save that for the southern part of the country, because at Old Trafford, at Anfield, at the Etihad, at St James's, everyone's going to be like, "What? We really don't care."
We're not bothered, lads.
But I always say a sign of away fans is always how quickly they switch from singing songs for their own team to singing about our crowd, and they did that on the 5th minute. I made a note of it. So you're not doing very well, are you? When you're an away crowd and you've got run out of your own songs after 5 minutes. It's not a great end.
It's not great. It's not great at all. I'm enjoying crowd watch, though. Maybe we can make that a regular thing.
Probably getting the material from City, aren't they? I mean, they've got a big thing with us these days, haven't they? Their fans, so they're probably cheerleading a lot. They're probably having meetings and agendas and
honestly, it's absolutely
sharing
baffling.
content.
Well, let's get back to being big stats heads and all that. Mo Salah, obviously, 1 goal, 2 assists, plays the full 90, 2 shots on target, 1 off target. Accurate passes 43, which is 86% of those that he attempted. Smile on his face as well, which loads of people have been assessing that also for some reason. So we're all happy with Mo now, yeah?
Well, I mean, yeah, like obviously Mo's happy, and I'd hazard a guess at the reason why Mo wasn't happy was that he, you know, if you wanted to have a look at why, maybe have a look at that game Saturday when he's getting put in headlocks and arm bars every 2 minutes. Yeah. Maybe that's the reason why it's hard for him to crack a smile every now and again, because he's just getting volleyed from pillar to post every time he steps on a football pitch. And I think there's a little bit of a Zaha thing going on with him, whereby Zaha comes out and talks about it and says, listen, I'm going to get my leg broke here if you don't do something about it. I don't think Salah's the type of person to do that. I don't think he values his privacy. You can tell. I don't think he's the type to come out and say something like that. But maybe someone at the club needs to do it, because I don't know whether there's a targeting of his shoulder area after what happened in Kiev, because it's still obviously strapped up and stuff like that. But some of the things that were going on there Saturday were mental.
He lost his rag, didn't he, at one point?
Yeah.
And then, there's a couple of penalty shouts as well. There's the one where he gets a free kick given against him after all the treatment he'd had.
Because he's just too strong for the fella, after, you say, after everything else.
Which was bizarre. I mean, I think you're right in that there's perhaps something for the managers to say, both on Salah and his treatment, but also on the fact that for some reason we don't seem to be allowed to have a penalty in the Premier League.
Absolutely. I was chatting to Neil about this. I've had this theory for a while, and I'm not seeing anything that dispels it. I want to say, put this on record, it's a complete myth that the lower sort of teams in the division started years ago, that the big teams get more decisions than they get. What strikes me when we're playing teams like Cardiff now is, and I think this starts from school ground, do you know when you used to play with your mates and one team would be well better than the other team? So even when parents were involved, they'd make them give one of their players. They'd be like, well, you're too good, so you'll have to have an extra player. Yeah. I think that's what refs do now, but on a much at the elite level. So they'll look at a decision and go, no, we're not giving you that. Why? Well, you're just too good. You're already too good. It's not fair.
Sorry for Cardiff,
it's not fair, so we're not going to give you the pen as well. And I see that all the time now, but no one talks about it because the myth is the big teams get all the decisions, and I just don't think that. I just don't think that's true at all.
It's like the foul that's not a red in the first 5, but is in 60 onwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
It's context, and it's referee in context rather than just giving it. Yeah. It'd be nice if you just gave it. Sadio Mane as well, first Premier League goal since September the 1st. His goal against Red Star ended a 7-game goal drought, which is the worst run of his Liverpool career. But he's now got 6 Premier League goals for the season, only 1 fewer than Eden Hazard, and he's got 7 in 13 in all competitions. He's another one where it doesn't feel like long ago we were talking about this could be his season, he could outscore Mo, he could do this, he could do that. He's gone a little bit off the boil. He's obviously had the trouble with his hand, which will play a part in that. But his first goal, the tenacious goal, if you like, the one where he almost assists himself in scoring it, was fantastic. The other one was fantastic in a different sort of way, and it'd be good now if he goes on a run, wouldn't it? Because he looks back to his best, doesn't he?
Yeah, in a mad way. I think he's maybe suffered a little bit by how good Robertson's been. So again, you look at it from an opposition point of view. They have to prepare to try and stop Liverpool. So maybe the opposition, I think, a little bit overemphasising that left side of ours, try and block that off. So by proxy of that, we're trying to release whoever's on the right, Trent, Gomez, Mo if he's drifting out there. But as well, he likes those little triangles of play, Sadio, doesn't he? And we've not seen that much this season in that final third where it's the full-back, the centre midfielder, him, maybe Firmino drifting over. That's where he really comes alive for me. He's not really getting those positions in games, those situations in games like he was when he was really pairing for us. So he's a tenacious player. He's relentless, and he plugged away on Saturday, like you say. And I think I really enjoyed his first goal because it looked about 3 or 4 times that it just weren't going to come off for him. It was scrappy, it was horrible, and then he just larrups it. Yeah. And it's a brilliant goal. It's an absolute goal, rifle. Yeah. So it was a really enjoyable goal for me. And as well, the second one, he runs from about 5. Them defenders have got about 5 yards head start on him, and he just beats them in a sprint. And again, there's little snippets there of just how good and how decisive each of them front three can be individually and as a collective when we are seeing it and when we're allowed to see it.
Most balls the perfect weight and the perfect time for his run as well.
Exactly.
Almost like, he knows without even having to really think, this is how fast he can run, and I know he's going to get on the end of that before him. Releases at exactly the right time. It's a lovely finish, and all this, we keep talking about, not just us Liverpool fans in general, the click and when are they going to click. That was clicking.
They're doing that in training every day for me. I think if they weren't, you'd be able to see it all over Klopp's face. I think he'd be really worried. I think they're doing it all the time in training. I think what it shows you when they do it on Saturday is that that's a Cardiff team who are completely mentally and physically worn down. Yeah. So that's when it's allowed to show. That's when it's allowed to shine. And, we'll get them opportunities again, I think, as the season comes.
Okay, that has been the second look. Liverpool's record at Anfield since May 2017 is played 26, won 17, drawn 9, lost 0. That is in the Premier League. They scored 60, conceded 11. They're good, They're really good. We're doing well. We're flying. Let's all enjoy it, That's been the second look.